Once you start making 6 or 7 figures as a music producer, you view the whole game differently. It isn't about chasing the latest plugin. It's not about fancy gear. It's not even about networking. Because getting in front of the music industry can only take you so far if your music sounds amateurish. The number one way you can guarantee yourself a career is to sound as good as all the pros. And this is how I did it. How my tracks went from sounding like this
Just the one coming down by why. It tastes like gold, but it's rotten. Sometimes engaged can look like.
One of the most important things I learned after producing music for 20 years is to focus on the big 3: the kick, the snare, and the bass. They are the most crucial elements of your track. Let me show you. Let's take this track here. It sounds pretty good, but the big 3 are not hitting. Let's look at this kick here. This kick doesn't have a lot of sub, which is why it doesn't have a lot of power. I could try to use EQ to add more bass, but it's much better to just find a sample that already has a lot of sub. This sounds so much better to me. As far as the snare, I actually really like these samples, but I just think the whole thing needs to hit harder, which is why I'm gonna use Neutron by Isotope and a clipper to really maximize that energy. This adds a ton of smack to the snare. And finally with the bass, it's patch choice and its volume. This patch is really subby and it doesn't have a lot of sustain, so I'm gonna swap it and make it louder. This is a way better patch. And I'm gonna crank the distortion too, so we have a little more in the mids. Now this sounds kind of funny, but I always say make your own sounds to have your own sound. Everyone wants their songs to sound unique, right? So the way you do this is by creating your own signature samples. And here's my number 1 hack for sound design. It's to think in terms of shapes and textures versus just instruments and notes. Let's say you want to make a percussion loop and you're starting with a sample like this. I would describe this as papery, textured, and the texture I'd want to add to it would be something metallic, something opposite, like this. It sounds really nice and full to me because of the opposing textures. Actually, I'm making a whole glossary of sounds in my upcoming producer crash course. You'll be able to learn about different sound textures and shapes by listening to examples. So I think it's gonna be really cool, along with the 99 of my favorite production tricks that I'm putting in this course. Link is in the description. And fun fact, I send out an extra production tip to everybody on the early access list, so get on that. Now I'm gonna say something controversial, but you only need 1 synth to produce cool music. Don't fall for the shiny object syndrome where you chase every new synth, especially if you have a day job or school and only limited time to make music. What's better is to learn 1 synth and use it really well. Personally, I really like Serum, mostly because there are a ton of sound designers making really good patches for it, so if I don't feel like making presets, I don't have to. What I like to do is organize my sounds by style, so this is a huge hack, really saves a lot of time. Plus it's so fast and easy to adjust your presets in Serum, you can make it customized to you very fast. There are many plugins that claim to make your vocals sound release ready, and a lot of them do. The problem? You're always buying more plugins and you don't even know what they're doing. When it comes to EQ, there are just 3 frequencies you really need to know. The first one is 800 Hertz. For most pop vocals, this is where the body sits. You crank this up before compression and your vocal is gonna sound instantly a little bit thicker.
You could have had me, but now you lost me.
Next is 3000 Hertz. So this frequency is what I call the bite. It basically helps a vocal cut through a busy mix.
Go on and lose it. Do how you do it.
And finally, we have 8K, which adds that pop brightness.
Lose it. Do how you do it.
I've been doing these live streams lately where I give feedback on people's music, and I keep noticing the same thing. People are terrified of sauce. Reverb, delay, vocals need wetness. Yeah, I know big pop records sound really clean, but if you really listen to something like Ariana Grande, the sauce is there. The key? Setting up your buses for verb and delay in your vocal preset so that you sound polished from the start. Let me show you. These are my sauce tracks that I have in every session. We have some verb, delay, and even a doubler I'm busting out to for a little pop sauce extraness. I mean, just check out this vocal without all of this.
Go cry inside your Malibu house.
And with it.
Go off and try to play God.
When I'm in final stages of a track, like this, where it's almost done, I like to go through the track and ask myself one thing: do I need it? For example, with this track, when I was first producing it, there was sort of a hole in this spot that I filled in with this yell that I did. But then when we got vocals on it, the song is actually a collab between this artist, Stephen Cher, and Sean Kingston. Sean sang like a really cool ad-lib right here. And I noticed that this yell thing and Sean's ad-lib were kind of fighting each other.
My heart's broken pretty big.
So the yell thing, gone. Don't be afraid to toss things out if they don't work. I learned this tip from my friend Billy Centenaro, and it's completely changed how I mix. So instead of constantly adjusting the volume of my speakers as I mix up and down, I keep them at 2 volumes and only 2 volumes. For me, it's minus 43 here in UAD console, and then the dim, which turns it down minus 17. Your ears actually get used to whatever level you're listening at, so if you keep changing the volume, you keep changing your own perception of your song. So yeah, I even listen to references at these volumes now because it trains my ear to know what's good at these volumes, and it's easier to get there. And the louder should be not too loud, but definitely where you can feel it, and the quieter is like to mimic the sound of smaller speakers. So I remember there was a comment that tried to roast me for recording with open back headphones, and they were saying, oh, this is wrong, you know, because the track can leak into the performance from the open backs. But here's what people miss. Performance matters so much more than technical details. And even if there was a tiny bit of bleed in my headphones, which there wasn't because I keep my tracks super low, the open backs are more comfortable for me. So because I'm more comfortable, I'm getting a better performance. And that makes a huge difference. Same thing with sitting versus standing when you sing. Yes, standing expands your diaphragm, it can help, but it's more comfortable to engineer yourself and sing sitting at the same time. You don't have to get up and down. So the best way to do it is the best way for you, not the correct way. Every week on my live streams, I notice some people put nothing on their master bus, and that actually really hurts what their songs sound like. I'm not talking about loudness wars or crushing your mix like it's 2010. I'm kind of just talking about matching an industry-wide standard for loudness. So if your song sounds quieter than what listeners are used to, or A&Rs, if you're pitching, it can really hurt you, even if your song is great. And listen, it doesn't have to be any kind of crazy thing. I just use ozone on mine, add a little bit of exciter in the mids. I usually bump the bass a little bit, bump the kind of cut of the vocal. I narrow the bass with imager, expand a little bit in the air frequency. And most important, I use a limiter. The threshold is not very high for me. It just adds a little bit of that volume bump, makes everything kind of glue together more. And if you're not sure, you can use this plugin to analyze where your track is sitting as far as volume. Your LUFS, the overall loudness, if you're not too familiar with these terms, should be around minus 9.5, minus 10, maybe minus 8, no more than that. If it's much below that, your track is probably too quiet and is kind of like not competing as it should. All right, and the number one thing that I learned in the last 20 years is that your signature sound will not come from things you don't like. When I was a younger producer, I remember trying so hard to fit into whatever was going on at that time. I remember like 2016 trying to make synths like Flume or whoever was popping off at that time, and not loving it, but like feeling like I had to.
Better pray for me, better pray for me.
That sounded cool, but that's like so not my style as a producer. And you know what? This kind of aged and became stale very quickly. So don't chase trends. At this point, I know what I like. I know what people like from me. It's a lot of vocal pads like this. It's a lot of attacky kind of drums. It's a lot of really bright poppy production, really. And pro tip, yes, I have sample packs like on Splice, but what I actually like to do is make sample packs just for me. No one has any of this. These are just like my own little sounds I pull out of sessions if I make something I really like. Yeah, like here's a loop I used in a song and I loved it, so it's part of my collection now. I really recommend that you guys do this. And that's it, guys. If you need more help, definitely get on the early access list for my music producer crash course. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.